Welcome to GNCC's Espresso Live from the Corner Office, where we bring you conversations with top leaders and executives who are shaping our community. Today, we are thrilled to have a distinguished guest joining us, Bryan Rose, Executive Director at Niagara Community Foundation, often also referred to as NCF. Bryan is passionate about philanthropy and brings over 25 years of experience in the charitable sector. A lifelong resident of Niagara, he has deep community roots and a strong network of professional and personal connections. A skilled team leader, Bryan values building genuine, enduring relationships based on integrity and a shared commitment to giving. His career began at his alma mater, Ridley College, where he served in various roles, including acting director of development, followed by senior development officer for major gifts and capital campaign with the Mohawk College Foundation. He holds an honors BA in history and political science from Western University's Huron University College and a Master of Arts in Leadership from the University of Guelph. Bryan and his wife Andrea live in Beamsville with their children Bryn and Alex. Bryan began his tenure as NCF's Executive Director in 2016. And the organization itself is celebrating this year 25 years of purpose-driven philanthropy, and with that, defining the impact and future of giving in Niagara. Over the past quarter century, the Niagara Community Foundation has grown to $91.5 million in assets and granted more than $32 million to local causes. Together with 400 plus fund holders under the NCF banner, it is truly a legacy worth celebrating. So Bryan, we are thrilled to have you with us and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mishka. It's wonderful to be here with you this morning, and thank you to you and your team for the kind invite to join you for Espresso Live and to share with the community about the great work that NCF and our volunteers and staff team and our fund holders are doing in the community.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And to all of our listeners who are with us today and participants, thank you for joining us. And it's going to be the format is a format that you always like, and that is a really interactive one. Many of you, and some of you who are unable or were unable to join us, will have a recording of this being made available to you following the Espresso Live. It is available either via YouTube, and it can also be emailed to you as well as through many of our social media channels. But for those of you who maybe have not yet submitted a question for Bryan, please feel free to utilize the chat function. And all the questions are coming directly my way, and we're committed to getting to all of them. If you run into any technical problems, please, again, utilize the chat function or send us a text or email, and my colleagues will address them immediately so that you're not even missing a minute of this great conversation that we're about to have. Additionally, if you'd like to enable live transcript, you can find that option on your Zoom screen as well. The topics that you, our listeners and attendees, had wanted to discuss are really in a number of areas. So first of all, you've asked NCF's impact and legacy. Many of you are familiar with the organization, but maybe not its full impact and its legacy, as well as to looking at philanthropy and giving as a whole in Niagara. What does it look like? What does collaboration look like? What does community building look like? And where are some of our opportunities, as well as some of the challenges? And because it is called From the Corner Office, Bryan is going to also take a look at his own leadership journey, what it has taken for him to be in the position that he's in currently, and what inspires him to move forward from here. We're also looking to wrap up the session with some very fun, insightful, rapid-fire questions. There are some of our audience's favorite. They're most definitely some of my favorite because they always give us a really good glimpse at the individual that we're talking to and what motivates them, inspires them, and makes them look forward. So thank you for all of that. And so, Bryan, in light of the questions that have come in, that are also, I'm noticing in the chat that are coming forward right now too, let's start out with impact and legacy.
Great.
Congratulations. 25 years for the Niagara Community Foundation with 91.5 million in assets and over 32 million in grants distributed. I was wondering if you could give our listeners a little bit of insight on just community foundations across Canada. And when you specifically look at NCF, what do you see as the most significant impact NCF has had on Niagara in that period of time?
Yeah, great question. So NCF, we are a community foundation based out of Niagara. Obviously, we represent the 12 amazing municipalities that make up Niagara, from Grimsby to Fort Erie and everywhere in between. There are actually over 200 community foundations across Canada, from coast to coast to coast. So we are one of many. We have a mothership organization called Community Foundations of Canada, based out of Ottawa. They provide tremendous leadership and connection for the community foundation movement. So I often describe us and the community foundations. We are a charity of charities to a certain extent. We are major funders in our communities, supporting financially and in other great ways, through philanthropic leadership, mentoring, et cetera, the charitable sector in communities across the country. So here in Niagara, we are 25 years young, have had tremendous growth in that time, as you've alluded to. And I would just say, the significant impact I think we've had in Niagara comes in, I think, twofold. So for me, it's depth and breadth. So the depth in terms of our steady increase of our granting output over our years. Our first year we granted $9,000, and then last year alone, $3.8 million. So our ability to try and help meet the needs of the community with other amazing funders here in Niagara. There are other foundations and other groups, like the United Way does an amazing job. So being part of that, those funders here in Niagara. The other impact, I believe, because we also grant to a broad range of organizations in the sector. So that's everything from social services, healthcare, the environment, arts and culture, sports and recreation, animal welfare. We kind of cover a lot. So there's not just one sector that's getting all of our support, and we're able to try and meet those needs through a broad range.
Yeah, I fully agree. And for those listeners who are interested in seeing that broad range and where all the contributions are going to, I really, if you look at NCF's website, there is a whole list of all that has been shared in the community, and that has really made, Ryan, a significant difference to so many organizations. And we have to also remember that in Niagara, we have probably between 9 to 10% of all registered organizations are actually falling under the umbrella of being a nonprofit or being a charity. So it's extremely, sometimes we only know the ones in our neighborhood, but they are really critical to the well-being, not just the economic and social well-being and cultural well-being of our community. They're critical. So thank you for all that you do for those organizations. It does have an impact and does make a difference. Now, and we reference in our opening also the 400 plus fund holders contributing towards the NCF mission. Can you share a recent project or partnership that truly reflects the foundation's vision in empowering local charities and creating lasting change when it comes to and in relation to some of those fund holders?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention right off the top the David S. Howe's Fund that was created in 2017. This was a game changer and a transformational moment for not only the foundation, but for Niagara. At the time, it was the largest single donation in the history of Niagara at $19 million. So what we did is we created a unique granting stream with the very general parameters that the late Dr. Howe's provided to us. And so this became almost unrestricted, undesignated money that we're then able to receive applications for and then grant out on an annual basis. And as of 2025, so we've already had our dispersal from the David S. Howes Fund this year. So in just those short years, we've been able to fund or grant out $5 million just from David's fund all on its own. So that for us, is a tremendous honor to honor his legacy in that way, but also to really have a deep impact in the charitable sector. And most recently, I would say, you know, we've actually partnered with a number of families that unfortunately have lost loved ones. Um, and they're looking to create an honor and build a legacy for the people they've lost in their lives, their family members and their loved ones. And so, when I speak to these families, obviously they're crushed, they're devastated. It's been a range of situations. Some it's been an accident, others it's been a long time battle with a disease. But they really want to honor the legacy of their loved ones. So they turn to the Community Foundation, and we partner with them to do that. And that helps in the grieving process for them as it continues to give them some sort of direction and purpose, and to feel good that their loved one's name will be associated with good, right? And something positive will come out of it. A most recent example is the Rick Rose Music Foundation partnering with the late great Rick Rose, who was a music teacher and musician in Niagara Falls. So his family has created this fund with us to create scholarship dollars to help kids that are passionate about music and to remove finances as a barrier for them to be able to buy equipment, instruments, and maybe move on with their music career. So you can read all about that in our annual report that's on our website. Just a great example of how we've partnered with a local family to honor their loved one and support their legacy.
Brian, I think it is so important for us to have that and for people to have that, knowing that they have that option that is available to us, because often we are faced with a shock, with a loss, we're overwhelmed by emotions that are taking place. But how do we honor those individuals, and how do we give back, and especially individuals who have defined our community as well? So I think it is beautiful. I have had the privilege of taking part in some of those celebrations that people have put in place as reminders. And I have to say, it is at all times a real true celebration of their spirit and the way they have defined the community. So thank you to NCF and to your team for actually having these really probably very highly sensitive and emotional conversations and pathways that people go through as they're moving through their own grief and
Exactly.
trying to connect it. So I really do appreciate that. I wanted to take a step back, and I think this is in light of looking at how many organizations depend on giving, are part of the picture of philanthropy. And we hear a lot right now in our community where we often struggle with affordability. The needs in some sectors are ever increasing. In Canada right now in 2023, so it's just like a year and a half, 2 years ago, only about 16.8% of tax filers claim charitable donations. And that was really a historic low. It's down from over like 20% in 2026. But what's interesting to see that the total numbers of donors has decreased, but the donation amounts actually have increased. And as philanthropy is evolving rapidly in every area of our life, we see it and we hear it. What is your experience at NCF when it comes to that? And are there ways that maybe like from donor advised funds to impact investing that people are saying we want to give, but maybe we want to give differently than what we have historically done? And I was wondering if you can give us an insight. And I think especially for those individuals that are with us, that are in this sector, this might really be eye-opening.
Yeah, the trend is a really interesting one, Mishka, as you've shared. Donor dollars have gone up, but the number of donors have gone down. So really what's happening in the sector is that, the most major donors, the larger donors are keeping the sector afloat. Which, some may say that that's a problem. I look at it as anybody that's willing to make a donation, and to be philanthropic, I'm all for. So would never look down at that. But what is concerning but understandable is the fact that the number of individuals, individual households are not giving. And that's because of the external factors that you've alluded to. Is the economy since the pandemic has just really been a roller coaster ride, and people just don't have that disposable income. If you speak to someone like Betty Lou at Community Care here at St. Catharines Thorold, she'll share with you that some of the people that used to be their donors are now their clients.
Mhm.
They're seeking the support from the food bank because the economy has really faltered in a lot of ways. So for the Niagara Community Foundation, I think we've been early adapters in some of the change of the landscape, and the conversations I have with our fund holders and our donors are much different than those that are raising money for the food bank or Jillian's Place or things of that nature. And as a result, we purposely stay away from things like annual campaigns. Like at Christmas time, the groups that are desperate for money to fill the shelves of food banks to make the money that they need to at the end of the year to cover all of their costs. We stay away from that really because we know our charity partners need those resources then and there and immediately. So for us, our conversations are more based on the donor advised fund side of things. Endowment funds are a different conversation, and they're supportive. But the best part about it is, as opposed to me expressing the needs I have and what NCF needs, I get to talk to our potential fund holders as to what their philanthropic goals are. And then we try and tailor that. And once in a while, they'll ask for our advice on what, great organizations are out there. And we help lead them down a path to find the groups that they want to support. So really those are, that is the trend. I feel like we work with those donors exceptionally well, because they have a legacy and they have capacity and they want to give back. Home is where the heart is. They want to give back here in Niagara. So we help them to the best of our ability.
And that's a really interesting point because this is one of the questions that has come in, is that the question, are donors increasingly directing their support towards local organizations and community-rooted causes versus maybe some formerly international causes or other
Mm.
ones? And I was wondering if you see a trend in this, and this was one of our participants today who had also asked that question, which I think is a very interesting one. Do we,
Yeah, it's an
yeah.
excellent question. Yeah, so I would say, and again, I'm very privileged, mainly because the people I am speaking to already have a pretty good idea of the local organizations they want to support. So I would say pretty consistently in my 9 years now with the Community Foundation, that the vast majority of our fund holders, they are selecting local Niagara charities. So they're keeping their money here. Once in a while, they might look at a national or an international charity, but I would say that is probably 10% or less in the conversations I'm having. Again, the people are hearing about us and the impact that we have in Niagara. Um, our stakeholders, our fund holders, our board members, our volunteers, they're introducing us to their network, knowing that we have the impact right here in Niagara. So the vast majority of those conversations are focused that way. But once in a while, I'll get someone that say, what about UNICEF or the Terry Fox Foundation? And those are great organizations. But I would say, again, most of it is home is where the heart is. They want to support the charities that know that will have an impact right here in Niagara.
Yeah. And we see and hear the same, actually. We're getting the same kind of feedback from the community, and where people want to direct it, where they can say, especially in this economic uncertainty that we're facing, where they're actually seeing some social challenges that are very evident, where they want to see and want to make a change.
Absolutely.
Participants is asking, I would love to, and this is a question, I would love to hear about upcoming grant opportunities and trends in the region. And I think it's an interesting question wanting to kind of get a better understanding of how they possibly can apply for it or look for it, what is part of the process of it, and maybe even some of the trends that you're observing.
Yeah, so all of the information about our granting charities can find on our website. Very easy to find through our website. We have 5 granting rounds throughout the year. Our next major granting round is our community fund grants, which are due this fall. So all of that information is on our website, and I would also encourage any charity, anyone interested in applying to the foundation, look through our website and contact my amazing colleague, Joanne Crick. She is our Director of Grants and Community Initiatives. Joanne meets with and discusses every grant application and is a tremendous resource for groups out there, and she can provide the best advice. So anybody interested in applying for a grant through NCF, for the remainder of 2025 and into 2026, please take a look at our website and connect with Joanne. She's the best resource. They keep me out of that side of the business. Separation of church and state, as they say. So the trends, I would say, human services, support services, social services are really at the uppermost demand here for our dollars. We're fortunate in that we do have, certain assets that we can allocate to other things like arts and culture and sports and recreation, even pet welfare, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have those resources to deploy, but more and more and more, it's the demand for personal social services, whether that be food, housing, all of those things that are extremely needed in our community are the things that we are seeing that are very prevalent these days. So that's the trend we're seeing. The demand is through the roof for those organizations applying to us, and those are the applications that we're seeing more and more of for sure.
Yeah. And I think data is also supporting that the need is ever rising at this point. I hear from so many nonprofits in the organization that are also leaning on your organization to build their own expertise and their skill set. If it has to do with governance, if it has to do with creating strengths within their own organization. Nonprofits often struggle to maintain consistent funding despite doing very important work each day with a very committed team. Based on your and on NCF's experience, what insight or approaches can help organizations become more financially resilient? Because this is one thing, once I heard a stat, and I'm not sure if it's true, and I can't back it up with a source right now, but they basically said if you're a nonprofit with less than $5 million, you're forever vulnerable from year to year. You almost have to have a certain stability to move forward. Many of our nonprofits are smaller nonprofits serving a specific geographic region, market, or area. What can help these organizations becoming a bit stronger, a little bit more resilient?
Yeah, that's a huge issue for sure. And certainly for NCF, not only, do we try our best to, provide the financial granting side of things, we also work hard to provide philanthropic supports in other ways through 2 programs that we're running. Number one is our governance coaching program. So nonprofits and charities can actually apply to NCF. And what we do is we match up the organization with a consultant, and they'll do a skills assessment or a review of the organization to try and help understand where maybe they have some gaps. That could be fundraising, that could be board governance, that could be marketing. And we try and what we do is we match them up with a local consultant that will spend a certain number of hours with them to help bolster that part of their operation. And NCF covers the bill. We pay the consultant. The charity benefits from that consultant's work and advice. And that's just not on the staff side. That's also an organization's board getting in there and hearing what the organization needs. So it's a staff and a board benefit for both staff and board. And again, all of that information is on our website. And Joanne is our lead, our staff lead on our governance coaching program. So reach out to Joanne. Um, the other thing that we offer is we have partnered with the Armstrong Strategy Group over the last number of years to create a professional development series that focuses on local nonprofits and charities. We put together quarterly sessions for local organizations that can register. It's a few hours of networking and professional development. It's for local organizations by local organizations. So we bring in local experts to talk about everything from capital campaign fundraising, donor stewardship, board governance, social media. Sessions are local and affordable. It was funny, I was talking with Tracy Jeffroy from Brock University yesterday, who's a wonderful colleague and a great friend. And we were sort of commiserating about early on in our careers, 20 plus years ago, to get any sort of professional development, you had to go to Toronto or maybe into the United States. So for us, we partnered with John Armstrong and ASG to build this package so people can stay local and hear about local examples. So that's been a really great program.
Yeah, I think this is excellent. And I think it leads us so very much into the next one, because you're talking about partnerships and some of the other questions that have come forward. And one of our next topics is actually looking at collaboration and community building. And I'm reminded of a quote by Helen Keller that says, "Alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much." So I think when you talk about partnerships and when our audience and listeners are asking about collaboration, I think this is a good moment to look at what we can do together and things that we don't need to do on our own. And I think those partnerships like the one that you have with Armstrong Group and others, I think is key to strengthening the sector, but also at the same time strengthening us as a community. In recent months, this year has been dominated talking about economic vitality and economic impact. NCF is known for connecting nonprofits and local businesses at the same time. You gave us some examples just now. Can you share an example of a collaboration that not only addresses the social challenges, and we touched on some of them, but also contributes to Niagara's economic vitality? As this is something that we really have our eyes on right now. We at the GNCC believe they go hand in hand. They are not separate, but you do a lot that contributes to Niagara's economy as well. And I was wondering if you can touch on that.
Yeah, for us, being a connector in the community, and Niagara is such a wonderful place, and it's small, so you get to know so many great people. And one of the best parts about what I get to do on a daily basis, and what my colleagues do as well, is we do our best to connect organizations and businesses. I think examples of how we work with organizations are some of our fund holders are local business owners. And they believe in the endowment way. I'm thinking about, Salit Steel, for example, has an endowment fund with us. Harbor Industries, the Harbor family, so many different groups. We've got great partnerships with Walker Industries, et cetera, et cetera. So, groups like Meridian Credit Union, when it was Niagara Credit Union, they helped start Niagara Community Foundation. They were one of the first $100,000 gifts that got NCF going back in the year 2000. So, for us, though, it's those partnerships that really mean so much to us, both, from the philanthropic sector, but also the business sector. And I think, we are so fortunate in this community that our local businesses are very philanthropic, large and small. And so, we lean on them to do everything from supporting local sports teams to creating endowment funds to creating, to having, staff charity days where they allocate money for dress down days or things of that nature. So there are so many wonderful examples out there of local businesses supporting the charitable sector, and we love all of it and want to encourage it.
I couldn't agree more with you on this one. I totally second everything that you have just said. I think we have a very generous, a very giving business community and leaders in it, but big or small, there is a real commitment towards the community, and it shows the love that people have for the community because we give, we volunteer in places that are important to us. And I think that is what is truly reflected. We have a number of business leaders that are listening in today. And if you would say, if you could ask them for one concrete action to strengthen the community, what would it be and why would that be?
Well, if I could use a bully pulpit and just sort of say two quick things. Number one, and you just alluded to it, encourage you yourself as a business owner, but also any of your staff teams. Encourage them to get involved with any local nonprofit or charity as a volunteer, right? So encourage them. So lead by example. Join a board, join a committee of your favorite charity. Charities are desperate for um, really experience and people that have expertise in a certain area to be part of their governance structure, whether that, again, that's on a board of directors or like a finance committee or something like that. So show leadership in that vein and join one yourself, and also really encourage the people that work for you, that are your staff team, to do the same. And that helps get your organization's name out there. But what you're doing is you're building leaders within your own organization as well, and that just it makes the world go round. And the same could be said for the giving side, the philanthropic side. So, finding ways for your organization to continue to be supportive of the charitable sector, but allow your staff team to have some ownership and participation in that. Don't just make it a decision from on high.
Mhm.
Ownership and management has decided that charity X is going to be our theme. Engage your staff team, give them some ownership. That way, they're going to be more involved in it, and they're going to want to they're going to want to believe in it, and it might encourage them to give personally as well as what they also do. So, and that will hopefully spur on some other grassroots donors, so we can get more donors donating, and get that number back over 20% from 16. So I would say
Yeah.
those two things, and that takes leadership, and modeling your own actions and behaviors accordingly.
Mhm. And one of the things that we hear often back from organizations and businesses is that if you allow your team to choose the areas they want to get involved, let them lead it for them so that they can follow their passion and their purpose. That is often the best versus maybe something
Absolutely.
more in the interest of the organization. So, and again, it broadens the impact of the organization overall. And I think it's needed. Challenges and opportunities that are facing some of Niagara's nonprofits today are related to one of the things you talked about is a volunteer shortage, even for people to get involved. And boards, workforce retention, we talked and touched on financial instability. How can foundations and donors work together to overcome some of those challenges that are existing right now, because we need those organizations to strengthen our social or cultural fabric in our community and to stabilize it.
I think one of the, we know the trends, as we've talked about earlier. If you talk to, Betty Lou at Community Care or Marla Smith at Pathstone, not only is their demand increased, it's multiplying year
Mhm.
over year, right? So that's scary, right? Yeah, your eyes bug out and you're like, wow. So and how we tackle this is the $1 million question, and the pun is intended. So I think for as charities, and so boards of directors and committee members, and charities, what we need to do everything that we can to make our current donors feel extremely special, and that what they're doing has tremendous benefit and impact. So you steward and you thank as much as you can to make sure your donors feel appreciated. And what happens from there is, when those donors feel appreciated, they're going to tell their friends and their colleagues, and they're going to say, "We've had such a great experience donating to Brock University, Niagara College, Hotel du Shaver, like Niagara Children's Center, whomever. all of these great organizations that do such great work. And it's their word of mouth that will spawn and spur on other donors. So I think that that's really a key fixture. Make our current donors feel good, so then they tell the good stories and encourage others. And also, if you're a volunteer on a committee or with a charity or a nonprofit, and say you're on a board, share your experience with your network and tell them that you are on the board of whatever organ of the raft. And this is what our organization does. And that will plant some seeds. And hopefully those seeds will grow and flourish. And then that person might be interested in providing uh, their talent and their treasure, and their time to those organizations. So I think word of mouth, especially in a region like Niagara, is really, really important. So I think that's how we overcome it. So on the charity side, make sure your donors know how much you appreciate them and what their donations and their time have impacting the community, and it just goes from there.
I couldn't agree more, because I think what we see and hear about our friends or colleagues or acquaintances that we have is an inspiration for us to say, like,
Absolutely.
we can do it as an organization, I can do it as an individual, and that option is available to me.
That's right.
NCF has hit a milestone by celebrating 25 years and in your anniversary. But at the same time, I believe when we hit a milestone like this, we also sometimes want to look in the crystal ball and saying, what do the next 10 years look like for us? What are some of the emerging trends? What are the aspirations for the foundation for the next 25 years? I know that most of us make and have strategic plans that are in place for 3 to 5 years. Some of them may be a little bit longer. We review them on a regular basis, provide updates to our boards on it. But this is your 25th year. And so if you would have a crystal ball and saying, this is what we are aspiring to for the next 25 years. This is the impact we want to see, the innovation that we can maybe see, something that will shape philanthropy and community development in Niagara. What does it look like for you, Bryan?
Well, that's a small question, isn't it? But it's an important one, and I certainly don't. I feel like I've got some hubris to understand that just what my opinion is for this organization is just one of many.
Yep.
But I think knowing our board and knowing, we've got such an amazing board, and my staff team, there are only four of us full time, and I've got an amazing staff team with Joanne and Orla and Suzanne, just amazing colleagues. I think for us, I heard a saying a number of years ago: you don't stop a team in mid-stride, a team of horses, sorry, in mid-stride. And so for me, I feel like NCF is in a really great gallop right now. We are hitting our stride. So what I would like to do is for us to pick up some speed. Um, and the way that we do that is we increase our endowment, so then our output is greater, right? So the more that we build, the greater that impact that we can have in the community. So I look at many of my community foundation colleagues and counterparts from across the country. That we have two community foundations, one in Winnipeg and one in Vancouver, that are over $1 billion. So what that allows them to do is aspirational, right? So they can actually really, really dig into some of the massive issues that their communities are facing. So selfishly for us, that we build our assets, then we're able to output more, and maybe get into some of these bigger topics. But I think for me, the social impact investment world is something that we've dipped our toe into over the last number of years. Currently, we've got four social impact investments. So what that is really activating, other than just our granting dollars, we've actually got some investments that go to programs and projects that have a community impact, that provide supports. So, and we get a modest return, which is great, but really it's about the combination of the social benefit plus a little bit of a financial return for the benefit of the community. So how do we really maximize that and do something really important locally? And so for me, my hope is that NCF can be at the table with other members of the charitable sector, regional and local government, businesses, and other organizations to really address some major needs. We know that not one sector can do it on its own, but can the Community Foundation be at the table to really look at something like affordable housing? How do we partner with different groups to really take on that challenge? Because NCF, we can't solve that problem. Even if we liquidated every single dollar that we had, we'd be able to build one building, and
Yeah.
that's not going to answer anything, right? So, and of course, we're not going to liquidate all of our assets because, those are, donor advised dollars in many cases. But so, how do we partner, and how do we really get our assets working with others to have an impact? So, that's where I would like to go. I would like NCF to continue to provide leadership, be around those tables, collaborate, communicate, and contribute to the big ticket projects that need to happen to make Niagara a stronger and more resilient community.
And I think that is a great inspiration to actually say, I'm going to get up each and every day, and this is the vision that I'm holding, and this is what motivates me to move forward. And it's a wonderful segment actually to take also a look at your own leadership survey, because it is called From the Corner Office. So the idea is, and some individuals want to also know a little bit more about you, Bryan.
Mm-hmm.
You stepped into this role about 9 years ago in 2016. So some of the questions have been, what drew you to this position? How does your own journey align with the foundation's mission? I think you've kind of hinted at it, but what drew you to the position in the first place, and how does it align with just you as a person?
Yeah, so I've lived in Niagara pretty much my entire life. Moved here when I was about 3 months old, and the only time I've lived outside of Niagara was when I was in London during my university years. So Niagara, home is where the heart is. So I've always loved the Niagara. Coming home and getting across the Skyway, I always felt like I felt happy getting to the Niagara side of the Burlington Skyway. So I always felt good about that. So I'd known about NCF and the work that this great organization had been doing during my time when I was leading the development office at Ridley. And I'd known about NCF through Betty Lou Suter. I was able to meet my wonderful, amazing predecessor, Liz Palmieri. Liz was a giant in our sector and just one of the most inspiring and capable leaders in the philanthropic sector in Niagara, and we miss her. She left a huge hole with her passing in the fall. Um, so I was always extremely impressed with what NCF did for the community and how it operated. And even with a small team, at that time it was three people. It was Liz, and it was Orla, and it was Joanne, and how much they accomplished, and the impact that they had even at that time. Liz always joked she wasn't a fundraiser, but Liz took the foundation from zero to $30 million, in 15 years. And that's something that should, not be forgotten. And I joked with her, I was like, well, Liz, you did that. So yes, you are a fundraiser in spite of not wanting to be it. So I figured for myself, if I ever cut the umbilical cord from Ridley, um, I thought NCF would be a great landing spot for me because of my passion for Niagara, my abilities as a fund and skill set as a fundraiser and as a community builder and someone that was collaborative, someone that was committed to Niagara, that I could bring value. So when Liz announced her retirement in 2015, um, and that opportunity arose, I threw my hat in the ring immediately because it was a landing spot where I felt I could bring value. And I'm just extremely grateful to the foundation's board and hiring committee way back in 2015, 2016, that I was the one that they offered the job to.
Yeah. And I'm glad they did. I think the community is thankful for that
Well,
choice,
thank you.
especially also looking at the growth that has taken place over and in the past 9 years as well. It is absolutely tremendous. Leadership often requires balancing priorities on the one side, community needs on the other, internal demands, external ones. How do you describe your leadership style, and what the lessons have really shaped your career and your career path? So when you look back and saying, this was like a moment in time where I approached it differently, where I learned from it. But I think there's people here who would love to hear, because we see one side of you in the community, and maybe to a lesser degree that which is shaping your own career and leadership style.
Yeah, I think certainly predominantly my leadership style has been shaped by the amazing leaders I have had in my own life and in career, especially starting, with two wonderful parents who were leaders in their own right. My dad was the plant manager at Cyanamid and a chemical engineer. My mom was a university English professor at Brock and then the dean of graduate studies. So my sister was a manager with the Ontario Teacher Pension Plan for many, many years and a CMA. So even within my own household, I grew up with great leadership. And when I got to Ridley, that was put on steroids. And in my professional career, my first boss at Ridley, a gentleman by the name of Brian Eggleton, was a phenomenal leader and community, member. Really shaped my leadership by leading from the front, but also enfranchising his team. He never
Mhm.
referred to us as his employees. We were always his colleagues. And so it was that language and that mindset that really shaped who I am as a leader. And, I always talk about my three wonderful colleagues, and I'm so fortunate here with the Community Foundation to have Joanne, Orla, and Suzanne, and a tremendous board too. So we're able to do what we can because of how efficient and supportive of our we that we have. Um, I'm a collaborator, and I love to hear what other people's ideas are. So I want to hear different opinions from expertise, different perspectives, and then I let that percolate. We're talking Espresso Live, so I want to let that percolate through my own head until I come to whatever decision or direction I feel that we need to go. And I'm not someone, and I'm someone that has those conversations. I think I'm also aware that there's way more that I don't know than I know. So
Yeah.
I want that expertise and that experience to help guide me to make the best decision. And balancing priorities is always a challenge. I think with the Community Foundation, we're very fortunate that because of our breadth and depth, that the conversations I get to have with fund holders, it's never really a wrong decision, right? If they want to support one area of the sector, well, that area of the sector needs support, right? No matter what. So if they ask for our opinion, I still want to hear more about what's important to them, and then we can guide them. But that's all about listening, less than talking.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And with all the things that you have mentioned, we are nothing without our team, without our colleagues, and the people
Absolutely.
by our side. If that is our colleagues here from an operational point of view, our advisory councils that we have, our board, our community partnerships, I think each and every one of them makes us better. And I always say that tomorrow I want to be better than I was today. Like I just like that idea of continuously learning and improving. And it does make a difference. And I think it's shown in all that you do too, because I think that leadership that you've described and that which motivates you and that which gives you the balance, I think is seen when people look at the Niagara Community Foundation. One of our attendees today is asking what skills served you best in making the leap from your previous work into the executive director role.
Mm,
So this is really looking at a career change and saying like,
yeah.
you had indicated that you to some degree had your eye on this organization, had always felt an alignment with it, which I think we deeply have within us, somewhere alignment with different organizations, businesses. But what skills served you best for making that leap?
Um, that's a really great question. Certainly, I learned so much during my 14 years with the development office at Ridley. I started off as a junior and
Mhm.
worked my way up to running the Alumni Association, then the annual fund, until the end when I was asked to be the interim director. So the experiences and the time that I put in,
Yeah.
again, I also learned from very experienced fundraisers and alumni professionals throughout my career. but also from amazing volunteers and board members. I was very fortunate. Ridley had great committees. Ridley has two foundations. I was able to sit in on meetings, with the two Ridley foundations, one in the US and one in Canada. And I was able to learn and absorb from those groups. And then, my just under 2 year stint with the Mohawk College Foundation also gave me a different perspective and view of fundraising, of community building. I was really able to work with deans at Mohawk to help them achieve their goals and the equipment and the needs that they had within their own departments. So that was really fun and exciting. But ultimately, I think for me, I'm a people person. Relationships are so crucial. Building strong, genuine relationships with everybody that you deal with, whether it's the people that you work with, your clients, your customers, your donors, whatever the case may be. Having that genuine warmth and relationship is that's the common theme, right? And that's what, my one of my Jedi masters, Brian Eagleton, taught me in spades was those genuine relationships that you build over time. And I think some people think that fundraisers just come in and make it rain. When you show up and people start writing checks. And that's not the case. People need to trust you. You're asking them for their after-tax dollars, for a vision, for an idea, for a project. So they've got to trust you and they've got to trust the organization, and that takes time. So I think boards, give your fundraisers the time to genuinely and legitimately build those relationships. So I would say relationship building is probably the most important thing that was the continuum through my whole career. Um, and it's again a passion for what you're doing. And I said this to the hiring committee with the Community Foundation. This is the job I wanted. And this was advice that a very good friend of mine, who had been in recruiting, said. And he's like, Bryan, well, my nickname is Rosie. So he said, Rosie, if you want to nail this and drive this point home, he said, well, I know this is the job you want. You need to tell them that this is the job you want. You don't want another job. This is the one. And I said that and I meant it. And here I am 9 years later.
I think that's great advice actually to our listeners as well. It's the sense of this is mine. This is what I want. But Bryan, I wanted to also say that I think you're sharing about the importance of relationships. I think is critical. There was a quote I heard recently in saying that the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our relationships. And I think that is really true. And I think it goes way beyond of our personal relationships that we have. I think it gives to all the interactions that we have with individuals. And
Mhm.
you're also speaking about trust. I think it's the other factor of it. If you trust the other person who's sitting on the other side of the desk or right next to you or stands next to you, the way it will determine the speed and the way you can move something forward and make an impact on your community and make a change. So those are key factors. I really appreciate it. And now in light that you have shared with us your nickname, I can't call you that. I don't know what it is with me, but I just can't. I'm going to refer to you as Bryan in this.
That's okay. My Ridley people and certainly my university friends, I am Rosie. And people, if my good friend Asher, if someone calls me Bryan, he'll scowl. And
Yes.
it's not Bryan, but a lot of Niagara people and certainly the Community Foundation people, as with the people at Mohawk, as I got to know them, I've been Bryan. So for me, I answer to both. And happy to do so. But yeah, Rosie has been a nickname of mine since I was about 14 years old. My former housemaster's wife, the Shermans, Tony and Dagnia Sherman, who are mentors of mine, Dagnia gave me that nickname of Rosie when I was 14, and it stuck. And I answer to both.
Very good. Um, but it's a perfect way again to actually lead to our rapid fire questions. So those are the questions where we wanting to get a little bit of that Rosie kind of side of
Yeah,
you
yeah.
and hear more about it. Parameters are, it's meant to be more like your answers are meant to be like a 1 word, 2 words. Some cases you might need to explain why, and we might ask you this, but there's
Sure.
a couple of questions that individuals have wanted to know about you. And so I'm going to ask them. What is one
Fire away.
word? your colleagues would use to describe, so one word, right? One word your colleagues would use to describe your leadership style.
Open door.
Okay. That's I think forever a really good one. Because our series is called Espresso, we're a little bit coffee fanatics here at the GNCC. Morning coffee or afternoon espresso, what gets you through a busy day? And it can be
Both.
neither.
Both. 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 And my colleague Joanne makes phenomenal espresso that she'll bring in for us as a treat when we have when we have meetings. So yeah, both. Definitely both.
Definitely both. Very good. A book, a podcast, or a quote that has inspired you recently, that is kind of in the back of your mind, or that you somehow have written down, or that you have by your side,
Hmm.
that you listen to on your way home.
I think one of the common quotes that has always guided my perspective and leadership is from Franklin Roosevelt. And he said, "It's common sense to take a method and try it. If it fails, admit it frankly, but try another. Above all, try something." So for me, it's all about um, the hubris of failure, action, and not letting that any failure cripple you and keep going.
Yeah.
So, and this is the individual that got, the Western world through the Great Depression. So I think it resonates with me.
Yeah, it is a great quote, actually. So thank you for sharing that.
I might have butchered it a little bit, but that was what was in my head.
I think it's perfect, actually. I think it was perfect. I think it's the sense of get up after that and show up at the same time to take the,
Absolutely.
which I think is key. If you were not leading the Community Foundation, what other career would you see yourself in?
Well, I love the philanthropic sector, so I would love another leadership role, in this sector of some way. That could be a major academic institution or a larger national charity, something along those lines. Failing that, I would love to be the GM of either an NHL or an English Premier League soccer team.
Oh, that would be fun. That
That would
would
be
be
fun.
really, yeah, it's complex, but fun at the
That'd be
same
fun.
time.
I don't necessarily have the skills for the latter, but it would be fun to do just so I could watch hockey games with my son every night.
I think it would be great. What is your go-to way to recharge after a long week of meetings and events?
Family time, and I love to cook. I am the chief cook and bottle washer in our household. There is nothing I love more than to cook for the people I care about.
Yeah.
So family and friends. So making a nice meal for my family, for my friends, that's something that brings me joy. And then sitting down and enjoying that, that's
Mhm.
what brings me great joy.
Yeah. Inaga charity or cause, and this might be a difficult one for you to say, to answer because, and you might just want to say skip this one, but close to your heart that people should know about or more about, should know more about. So it might be even one way you're saying the majority of people are not even aware of it.
Yeah, again, as we are the Switzerland of charities, very difficult for me, and I shouldn't single anyone out here. All I can tell you is that there are countless charities here in Niagara led by extremely capable and experienced people that need your support, and it really depends on what sector you're passionate about. So if that's food security, if that's animal welfare, if that's the environment, if that's housing, if that's support services for children and youth, there is a great organization here in Niagara that is worthy and deserving of your support. And I can tell you, my colleagues and I, we know who the charities are, and we
Yeah,
understand the great work that they're doing, and they're all deserving and worthy.
yeah. I fully agree with you. And people have to tune into their inner self to saying like
That's
what's
right.
closest
Find
to
out
my
what's
heart.
important to you, and
Yeah,
then do a little bit of research, and ask
yeah,
somebody.
yeah. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice at the start of your career, what would it be?
Um, I would say, ooh, that's a good one. Patience, I
Mhm.
guess, is, and I think leaders are often A-type personalities, and you're always looking for more and the next thing and the next thing, right? Like to build and grow. So sometimes to pause and be patient, and realize that maybe the right things are going to happen at the right time. And you don't know it at the time because you're living it. And it might be something really, really good, or it might be something very hard and difficult that you experience in your life and in your career. Um, uh, Patience and good things will happen, I guess. For me, I that would, I guess, just be the general message, is be patient and continue to absorb and grow.
I think it's a wonderful way. And that was the last question actually that we had for you. Bryan, it's been an honor actually to spend this hour with you. And I know it's not in person, it's in this format, but it allows us in this format to share it with more individuals. And I'm really looking forward to receiving that feedback. Any closing comment that you would like to, if you have 10, 20 seconds for a closing comment, anything you would like to share that you feel like maybe you didn't touch on?
Yeah, I just generally thank you to my staff team, to
Mhm.
Joanne Crick, Orla Newhouse, Suzanne Veenstra, my board. They are a phenomenal board. Our committees that do so much work for us, and to my family, my wife and kids, my in-laws are amazing people. My sister, unfortunately, we lost both our parents to cancer a decade ago. My nieces and nephew, just thank you for the support that they all give me, and to the Niagara community for your generosity. And please keep supporting the charitable sector. NCF is here to help you in that journey, but be generous, be kind, and keep caring about Niagara, because we're a better community for everything that everybody does.
And I fully agree with you. So thank you for giving us this last hour, and thank you for giving everything that you're giving so generously back to the community in light of the love and passion that you have for Niagara and the individuals that make this community happen. So thank you for that. To all of our participants and attendees, we really are glad that you were part of the conversation. We thank you for the questions, and we look forward to seeing you at next month's Espresso. So thank you, and have a wonderful rest of August. Thank you.